So we're really lucky today, ladies and gentlemen, to have Wright. He's a poet, performer, theatre maker. He has 3 collections of poetry in print. He's going to be performing from The Feel-Good Movie of the Year, his latest book. Signed copies available outside afterwards. He's won a Fringe First and 3 Saboteur Awards for Best Spoken Word Performer. Luke, welcome to the EA Festival tent.
Hello. I spoke as I went past that speaker. That wasn't very professional. Thanks for turning out. Thanks for literally taking your lives in your hands and coming here. It's nice. It's nice to be here. I'm going to read poems mostly from that book. Some new ones, a few old ones, and the first one is called Drawbridge. My poor old heart, I've left its drawbridge down all summer long, encouraging the strangers. Let them finger all my prize antiques, inspect the mossy fridge, and play the xylophone of empties on the sides. I've left my journals on the coffee table, certain pages marked with betting slips, and nobody's been holding back. What's the word for an orgy when everyone's too fucked to fuck? This whole place stinks of cum and ash and shame. Who holds a party in their heart and broadcasts the address? I suppose it's time to tidy up, raise the drawbridge, fill the moat, and gather wood for winter. Unless, listen, there's another way in. Come with me. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Although you should always clap poets. Poets are like fairies. If you don't clap, we die. So keep it coming. Keep it coming. All right, this one's called Monster. I got a monster in me. Spats and tails and ridiculous jewellery. Fuck yes, my monster can accessorise. And this beautiful bastard is here to sell the night to you, cocking his leg to lube the chat. Watch him dance on a swazon cans, a double finger gun salute, chest out, arms as wide as Christ. Oi, 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 lads, 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 monster. Diatribing like a columnist, opinions like confetti from an arsehole. Oh, he's atrocious, but he knows this. He called himself out when he chose that shirt and refused to do the buttons up. You can't touch him because he's already touching himself. Monster, monster. And recently my monster's been escaping every night. I can't be asked to latch his cage. I thrill to hear the steel door clank. Yes, this old screw has turned. I thump my chest at 5 o'clock to wake him up. Sun's over the yard, oh monster. Grease your hair and ditch your sponsor. The monster's coming out. The monster's coming out. Oi, 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 lads, lads, lads. The monster's coming out. Resulting in the tang of delighted in the tang of human skin and swimming in the eyes of strangers. He loves you all. He wants you all. He loves you all. He wants you all. He wants to take you home with him. He wants to take you home. But come the acid morning, he'll be snoring, grinning hard at some old filthy dream inside my chest, while I take tea with you, afraid to ask. Hello, little what? It's nice to do that one early in a set, you know, as a sort of like warm up. I did once do a gig in Oxford. It was like a multi-person gig, and this one guy comes on. He says, "I haven't done my warm-up yet, right? I'll do it now." Right, which, as a conceit, is a shit way to start a gig. If he really hadn't done it, it's just grossly unprofessional, isn't it? But then he just proceeded to say the word "word" over and over again for 5. He was going word, 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 word. Word, word, word. That was it. Like, that was his opening poem. 5 minutes. The bar is set incredibly low in performance poetry, which is why I'm still around after 20 years. So I'm 39. Yeah, 39 years old, which makes me, I'd like to point that out because people, I probably look like a swollen 12-year-old, but I still get ID'd quite a lot. I mean, it's getting better, but I got ID'd, it was a few years ago, I got ID'd with my children. I was with my children in my own co-op. Sorry, I don't own the co-op. Well, I mean, I'm a member, so I guess in some, yes, I mean, I do own the co-op in a cooperative sense, but you don't get special treatment, really. So I'm in the co-op in my town of Bungay. I don't own the town, I live there. And I was there with my children, who at the time were 5 and 2, and I was buying nappies for the little one. I had what I like to think of as sort of a big night in basket. So use some kind of sanitary product and a bottle of alcohol. So in this case, it was nappies and a big night in. Nappies and wine. And she put the nappies through, and then she got to the wine. She went, "Have you got any ID?" And I said, quite wittily, I thought, "The fruit of my loins," which, thank you, is I think is a fucking good response. And she was like, "You could have borrowed those, kids." Now, I'm no legal expert, but surely borrowing 2 children is a far graver offence than buying a bottle of wine underage. Like, anyway, besides point. But I'm 39, which makes me, I'm going to be 40 in January, which makes me just, by 14 days, technically speaking, a millennial. Right? I'm a millennial. But if I'd been born 14 days earlier, I'd be Generation X, and I'd be able to afford to buy a house. But I can't. 14 days too late. And I read, to my horror recently, that I'm not only a millennial, but I am now what's known as a geriatric millennial, which is, I think they're 2 words that really should never be placed next to each other. It just sounds horrible. A geriatric millennial, that's what I am. So this is my attempt to sort of engage with this idea of generations and, of course, the culture war that comes with them. And this is called Beachhead, and it is new. Millennials, gather round and let my Insta insights clock your age and social grade. Form yourself into a mob. The churning brick dust sea behind you, grey clouds swelling overhead, and watch me clamber on this pillbox. Its innards slick with litter, its purpose long forgotten. Hear me preach, click, click along to the sorrowful sermon I wept into my MacBook as Boris Alas nearby in a minimised window. We didn't see it coming, did we? That we'd be bitching over pronouns whilst the structures of the state were duct tape, cable tied and bundled in the boot. But don't put it all on us. Blame Generation X and their Ottolenghi salads, their grand designs and their noughties land grab of all the decent rundown seaside towns. Those bastards. Blame good design, capitulation to the colour wheel. Blame all this good living. It wasn't my intention. But we made being the good guys look like being the bad guys. Oh, I dreamt of revolutions, but I can't be asked to rinse this carton out. I gawp at docks of Chinese peasants melting plastic down and recognise the brand names and the bags. Then wrap my compromise around my neck like a vintage scarf and take it for long walks around one of the less fashionable rundown seaside towns and contemplate how it will go from here as Gen Z manufacture memes to mock our Hufflepuff humble brags and our stupid skinny jeans. Of course our parents double down on history that they learned by rote, on why the empire did such good. Just look at all those statues. They look like truth. No one wants to admit they've been a dick their whole lives. What's to stop them stepping round the bars of our manufactured rage as I declare today I will not lift a pixel in your culture war. As if I hadn't picked my side some 20 years ago. Took a short-haul flight to Damascus to avoid the road, offset the carbon. Picture me, gazing from the 80s, snug within the poetry of papers on the breakfast bar, an etch-a-sketch of Rumbelows and Michael Palin patronising Arabs on a dhow. Look, look, I saw the wall come down from a living room in Essex. Here it comes. Watch the millennium rumble towards me in a mist of dry ice and laser light. And I thought that it was mine, marching up embankment with my Blair mask on, falling out of bars and Hoxton Square. I took the rule book and I drew a cock and balls on it, but I never dared to rip it out. And now I shake the etch-a-sketch until my wrists ache as a 22-year-old who really doesn't actually secretly think that skinny equals cool stares me down from an app I don't fully understand with a simplicity I didn't realise was permitted and asks me straight out, why didn't you do something about all of this? Well, over at the corner table, the boomers puff on their Captain Tom ceramic bongs and say, see, it's complicated, isn't it? Oh, I want to stop and gaze at waves, but all I see are dusty fighting pits and rings of baying punters waving wads of notes, the sinewed muscles of the fighters, the pistons of their shoulder blades, oh, the crack of bone, the smell of blood. Bit of a heavy start, I think. Maybe I'll just start lighting things up a little bit. That's what I've been thinking about. That's what 18 months at home with myself has done to me. Trapped inside with my monster. So this is a type of poem that's called a univocalism. It's a type of writing developed by the Oulipo. The Oulipo were an experimental avant-gardist French literature group from the 60s. Sound not the sort of people you don't really want to have around for a barbecue. And they were sort of anti-surrealists. The surrealists were saying, we're free. We can do anything, we're free. And the Oulipo said, no, you're not free, you're just obeying rules that you don't understand. In order to truly free the artistic spirit, you have to place your work under massive constraints and you're forced to dig ever deeper down into your subconscious and you get to a greater artistic truth, which is a nice theory. And they come up with these very complicated forms of writing. My favourite, which is this univocalism, which is a type of poem that only uses one type of vowel. So you choose your vowel at the top, and you can use your vowel that vowel as much as you like, right? But you can't use any of the other vowels, and you can't use Y. Okay? And you literally can't use them. It's not like, you've got to have all O sounds. You can't use any other vowels. You have to spell check for all the other vowels at the end and check that they're not in your poem. Okay. So this is in the vowel of O, because O is slow and beautiful. And this is, you can't really sort of plan a poem like this. You just have to sort of get words and put them together and see if you can make it work. So the first word I came up with was London, right? It's not surprising, ever present in the British psyche, London. Next one, a little bit more left field, Bolton. And I thought, this is great. You've got Remain vote in London, Leave vote in Bolton. Maybe I could try and heal this divided nation to the power of poetry. What if I got a couple of hipsters from London and I sent them to Bolton on like a fact-finding mission to find out what life is truly like there? Now, the more literate amongst you will have noticed I've got an immediate problem with the word hipster, haven't I? Containing, as it does, two of my contraband letters. Not an O in sight, A lesser poet at this stage would have turned back. Not I. I simply deployed a simple metaphor. So when I say sloths, I mean hipsters, okay? Right, we're all on the bus, good. Okay, and they go to Bolton, they meet a bloke called Ron, who's got a shop that sells a little bit of everything. And this is called Ron's Knock-Off Shop. And it's in the key of O. So there are no A's, E's, I's, or U's. I'm sorry if I'm labouring this point, but thus far, no one looks impressed. Like, okay, it's fucking hard writing a poem that's only got one vowel in it. You go home tonight, you'd be like, hello. Oh, bollocks. Although oh, bollocks works, doesn't it? Oh, bollocks should be, that's how you start a poem like that. Damn. Two cool London sloths go north to Bolton. Oz. Proto-fop on lots of pot. Hole. Posh kook. Long socks. Brown flop. Hair, flop, hair. Oh. Bolton's not so droll. Bolton's not got Rococo blocks. Bolton's got no dons or profs. Bolton's got no .com showrooms, no comforts for London cohorts, no. Bolton's got lots of old workshops, lots of soot, lots of orthodox lowbrows who mop floors or drown sorrows. Oh, poor old Bolton. Soz. Low. Bolton's got Ron Ock. Odd job bod, compost gob, Ron's old shop flogs, knock-off dross, low-cost, low-cog togs, non-cotton, cotton socks, row on row of dolls for tots, old promo photos of Bjorn Borg, poo brown ponchos, crossbows, off-food, goth porn, docs for opods, knock-off. Ron's old now, Ron's got no boss, Ron's got know-how, Ron knows how to hold forth, Ron knows how to shop for top knock-off tosh, knows how to cough off no good cops. Front of shop, Ron plonks bottom down on worn old stool. scoffs pork roll, down shots of scotch, croons old Motown songs, blow soot, blow snot, blows bottom off. Ron's dog Bozo growls soft growls, both bollocks, lollop. London sloths stroll from block to block. Oz spots Ron's old shop. Oh, cool shop, Oz hoots. Hole, look. Hole looks. Oh, wow. Hole drools on Ron's hodgepodge lot of knockoff rot. Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. Oh, Oz, look. Pooh brown ponchos. So now. London sloths blow lots of dosh on Ron Ock's cosh of knock-off tosh. Ron Ock. Good, good. Ron scoffs. Now, sod off. Oh, sod off. So north. Ho, ho, ho. Sloths opt not to sod off. Sloths opt to stroll off. Oh, so slow Ron lolls. Rolls sloths dosh. London morons. Lock shop for long month off. Roll on tomorrow. I've gauged you. So, so this is another new one, actually. I realised that nearly all my friends are men in their 60s. And I like this. And particularly my friend Martin. So nice, so much nicer than men of my own age. He checked in on me every single day because he knew I was on my own in lockdown. Well, I was with the kids sometimes. Which is worse. But he checked in on me every day. It was very lovely. I was doing these online gigs, and every week or so he sent me a bottle of port so I could drink away the pain. It was nice. And I was saying I've been quite effusive to him. I was so good that we're friends. I love being friends despite our age difference. And he went, right, you know what your problem is. He's quite horrible to me. He goes, no, your problem is, he says, you're a disgusting gerontophile. And being as I am not a man in my 60s, I haven't learned all the words yet, so I didn't know what that meant. I looked it up, and a gerontophile is someone who's sexually attracted to the geriatric, which is really not what it's been about at all. And I'm kind of So this I wrote a riposte to him, and this is called Gerontophile. It's from Martin Rosen. You called me a gerontophile, they're hinting that I use my guile to win the trust of kindly older guys. Suggested that my youthful vim is catnip to them, lures them in until these dolts are what now? Compromised? But this is a disgusting libel. Fuck, I'll swear upon this Bible. Lay it out in rhyme with clarity. The service I provide's consensual. Ha ha, no, it isn't sexual. What I do's a kind of charity. You see, these guys, these older guys, the deckheads heavy in their eyes, of all this weighty wisdom to impart and no one to impart it to, then what's an aging chap to do but sit around and moan and belch and fart? Yes, short of lands, devoid of titles, all he craves are fresh disciples fit to hear his anecdotes, his puns, to guide his elbow as he walks and nod through long Socratic talks and smile and say, I haven't heard that one. And this is what I do for them, my creased cabal of older men, cartoonists, poets, novelists and vicars. I'm the patron saint of codgers. I ignore the gravy splodgers on their ties to listen like a ligger. Sure, they live in good-sized houses, waited on by patient spouses. Yes, they've all lived long and happy lives, but sure as they still read a paper, death calls round like Danny Baker. Pity them, these guys, these older guys, these dames they're blamed for everything and no one likes the songs they sing. Their children scold them if they have a drink. In airy newsrooms by the Thames, the young folk never send for them. No, no one says, but what does Will Self think? Pity them, they're getting thin, they get their daily step count in from journeys to the toilet in their night. Their prostates are the size of sports cars. Nature's set to sign their scorecards. Christ, it's draining, drifting to the right. They've lived through countless governments and now their hearts are full of stents. They're not allowed a sausage or a pie. Imagine that, poor older guys. They had it once but dropped the prize. The woke are taking over now, they sigh. You claim I groom these guys, but why? They're already so well groomed, these guys, with tailored blazers, handkerchiefs and ties. And on that final note we'll end. Yes, old men are this boy's best friend. Let's hear it for those guys. Those old guys. Right. I'm going to read some shorter ones from the book now. This is a poem about... one of the nice things about lockdown is that I saw lots more of my kids, and one of the difficult things sometimes is being away from the kids for a couple of nights a week. So this is called a pub gig in the middle of nowhere. I did this gig in a place called... I forget now. Some place in Sussex, in the High Weald. This beautiful pub there with lovely hops all on the front of the pub. And it was a beautiful little gig in the garden. And afterwards, I met this little boy called Daniel, who was 7, and he sat there and watched the whole show. And it made me ache for my children. So this is that poem. A pub gig in the middle of nowhere. The locals take a pride in it. No commerce down these silted lanes. A coaching inn that's still a coaching inn. Fermented. Sheltered under hops and shouldering its centuries with all the calm of village cricket. Blokes in whites and wives in hats on yeasty afternoons. And I'm here to spin them all some yarns, to tell them things they've known for years and hope the way I do it does the trick. An entertainment older than this horse-brassed hearth. And later in the garden I meet Daniel. He'd sat there with his parents, sweet and still, all through my show. 7 years old, he tells me. Cherub, almost rendered down to boyhood, and so much like my own son, Sam. A milk-faced storm of cleverness and cheek, who comes at me now with questions like weapons. His father picks him up, blows raspberries on his stomach, sits him at their table with some chips and rips the ketchup sachet. Wholesome chores of parenthood. It's 3 nights since I made a meal for mine. And from the car park, the fields of the High Weald are endless. In this middle of everywhere, I know the enormity of my choices, the wretched, minute realness of being lost at sea. I drive back down the sunken roads, tunnelled by trees beneath a cold moon, and keep my boys' car seats in the rear view. Empty now, and soon they'll go. But I'll still witness boys like Daniel, pulling on a hand in Sainsbury's, thwacking teaspoons on Formica and different strip-lit M4 chains. Perhaps those boys will haunt me, remind me of a time which I, through work and through divorce, have cleaved in two, have taken half of. Dear God, only half. Okay, it's one about my dad. My dad is, all through my childhood, my dad, he makes things. He's really good at making things. I'm shit at stuff like that. But he made particularly skeleton clocks, which are like, you know, when you can see all the workings and they're sort of displayed under glass domes. And he made them from sort of very old Georgian designs. And this is a poem for him. It's called Clocks. Condemned to office work in London, your workshop was your weekend refuge. The thick smell of machine grease, corkscrews of brass filings on the lino, and against the window that colossal lathe, the colour of steel warships. Out of this industrial den emerged the skeleton clocks you made from intricate Georgian designs. 100 perfect bits machined in brass and displayed under the glass domes you wear white gloves to lift each Sunday night when you deftly wound each tricky mechanism. And every January you put them forward at the Model Engineers exhibition. Once I thought to stay awake to see you when you came home late. You crept into my room to uncase the gold medal you had won and whispered, "Pretty good, eh?" You let me in. And though I never found the knack for making things or helping in the workshop, I learned from you the pride that comes with skill. And it's your clocks that come to mind now as I walk slowly through the cardiac wing. Past doorway after doorway, framing grey-skinned men, balding and babyish in hospital gowns, left open at the chest like shirts ripped in bar fights, almost missing you, so haggard with the IV in your arm. The clocks. I think about the clocks you filled our house with, years ago when we had all that time. I feel I should do something a bit cheerier now. This is, I'm going to read this one because I've got a friend in the audience who I went to school with, and she was there when this moment happened. This is like, when I was in sort of my last year, I went to school really near here, actually, at a school called St Margaret's in Gosfield, my junior school. And I was really naughty in my last year, and I kept getting in trouble and getting sent out. It's about getting sent out. We don't do that to kids anymore. We don't make them stand outside the door in shame, do we? We kind of realised about, emotional damage. But yeah, we were told to stand out there, stand outside the door. So it's about being sent out of a music lesson. It's called Sent Out Age 10. So you've got loads of clues in the title. You know where you are. So that's what I call a strong title. Sent Out Age 10. You know where I cut 4 verses out at the beginning of that just for that title. I had it coming. One comedy recorder squeaked too many. I shrugged and sauntered out, a cocky streaker with a copper's helmet, waving at my classmate crowd. But on the flagstones outside the door, it felt like getting stripped for swimming with the year above. As wafting from the dinner hall came the suet cabbage smells of lunch. And then the only thing I dreaded more, Mrs. Williams. I shrank into my shoulders, but of course she clipped across to me, "Oh, Luke, sent out again." And that was all it took to torch the rafters of my heart and bring the whole lot down. The falling grades and bullying. The old familiar eye sting. And as I wept ashamed, she scooped and cradled me, my almost adolescent bones. I still recall her satin blouse, her breasts, and how I almost let her hold me there before disgust surged up and writhing in her arms, I kick free. What was going on there, hey? Like, misguided? Or was she just, I was 10. She literally can you imagine being 10 and being picked up off the ground and cuddled by a teacher? It's fucking weird, man. I just got another little one from the book. I don't normally read this one, so yeah. It's called Friend Request, as in like a Facebook friend request. Mate, that's a good start, isn't it? That's my favourite opening word of a poem ever. Mate, to think you still exist. Out there now in hideous 4K clarity, logging onto Zoom and catching up on Gogglebox in the aluminium twinkle of an eco bulb. Don't you prefer the past? The world beneath the vinyl crackle, its edges blurred, its phatic chatter rendered down to poetry. I could leave you there, suspended in the amber of a Polaroid, where our parents, tweed-skirtled and double-cuffed, twiddle the cord of a rotary-dial telephone and smoke in the house. But then I think of Colk Abbey, the nursery shut up the day the little lord inherited the master bedroom. On the rug, a dinky car, abandoned like a goblet at Pompeii. The tyranny of that. That's that one. Cool. How are we doing for time? What time is it? Just so I know. Okay. It's for 10, 15 minutes. Okay, cool. This is, I'll do these 2. I'll do 3 more, okay? So this is one about, oh no, I've got to do that. Oh God, no, I've got to do that. Right, okay. This is a poem from my son, Sam, who I mentioned in the other poem. This is like when he taught himself to read. I say he taught himself. I mean, I assume the school taught him to read at some point. He kept coming home and going, "Oh, can I read to you, Dad?" "No, not till you can do it properly. It's horrible." That's obviously a joke, right? Obviously, I read with my child. I'm not a monster. I fucking did it, man. I put the hours in. Biff and chip. Jesus Christ. No wonder there's a literacy crisis in this country. If that's what reading is, why bother? I want to get that one. Biff and Chip get a terminal disease. That's the one I want to read. Reading for pleasure, this is. Anyway, he came home from school and he had this sticker on his book saying "Reading for pleasure." That was he'd graduated to pleasure. Before that, it was just it was pain. Now I'm going to quote Sam directly in this book, this poem, but I can't do his voice because he has a sort of high-pitched, weedy kind of child's voice. It's horrible, very whiny. So I'm going to do him as a sort of East End villain, just so, because I can do that. Reading for pleasure. And what pleasure it brings to me. When I tuck you in, you say, "Leave the light on, Dad. I want to read." I forgot about you the other night. You came back down at 10:30 with fizzy eyes. "I've finished it." Seconds, minutes, whole hours drift by and our words can hold you steady as a rock pool. The power of this, of learning to exist within your solitude, rely on no one but yourself, as if you knew that in the end, that's all you'll have. I watch you turning pages deaf to us, each one a cautious step away from me, leaning less and less, and understand how one day you will walk away for good, and know how beautiful that is. Oh, likes his son. What a cunt. Okay, fine. This is a poem about... I do know these poems. I don't know why I'm looking at them. This is a poem about wild swimming, which is something wild swimming. It's the only kind of swim we could do for the last year. It's about swimming in the River Waveney. I live in a little town called Bungay. It's where Brian Eno's brother lives, which is quite exciting. He's a very nice man. He's called Roger. And this is about that. It's called "And I Saw England," because I was sort of in that sort of creamy, frothing England, creamy. I was in that sort of mood. I was swimming up the river going, "Oh, England." And then something bad happened. Okay. Okay. In dusty, deep July, I threw my sun-scorched body in the Waveney, cooled my blood against the stream of weed and pennywort, then breaststroked up the river under alder glaze to turtle bask on a disused bridge support and gaze at England in the water's pickle green, and in the swan that glided 50 yards upstream, attended by her signet train. Imagine England in the centuries of blacksmiths' boys and parlour maids who'd slid their molten bodies off that once was bridge on countless burnt grass days like this. And there was England in the little rowing boat, and in the loosestrife flowers, and in the mighty cob that slipped along the river top beneath the smudge of butter sun towards me and his pen and signets far beyond my back. I kept an eye on him as I splashed off to reach my clothes, my bit of bank. But as I veered, he veered as well. So I veered further still, convinced that he would see I meant no harm. I gave that cob the river's width, but still the beast bore down on me till he was only inches off, and then his vast wings flapped, the white arm of his neck rose up, his ancient orange eyes flashed like fire on boar farms, like mortars dropped on Baghdad compounds, and I saw that stately mast slip as it did on Belfast streets and flinched as England's martial murderous hiss shot out at me from its serrated beak. I know that's. I was attacked by Swan. I'm basically making out that's the same as the Empire. But like, if you can't do that in a poem, where can you do that? This is a sort of lockdown poem. It's called "Bring Me My Devil." This virus saw my devil off and left me in the tutelage of my best self, who turns out to be an archbishop, a health fanatic, a McEwan's smug lecturer and rimless half-moons hell-bent on teaching me the names of trees or marching me across the April fields, ruddy as a camper. Look, my boy, a tit. Now life is one long limber up in gym shorts with a tidy hem. I'm wading through a swamp of sourdough. I'm playing chess by second-class post, blinded by order, bleached as pale as the concrete walls of a Soviet-era theatre. God, I miss my devil, shitting like a barn owl down my back, whispering his slanders in my ear. You wouldn't catch him clapping for the nurses or mucking in or queuing for the co-op? Fuck no. He'll be in some dive bar now, out there in the shadowlands, some place beyond our squeaky comprehension. But when they click that combination lock and set us free, I'll send for him. I'll drag him flailing from his cups and dunk him in the horse's trough. I'll scream at him to do his worst to me, line him up and get him out, unspool my weeks of hearty labour, piss on all the ledgers of my soul. Oh, someone bring my devil back to me in a hot throng of leaking bodies and shared saliva, rank urinals in dark basements thick with lockdown dust, to rob me of my dreamless sleep, to feed me saturated fats, to mock me as I vomit on my boots and push his horny thumbs into my well-fed heart and pull. I will just, I'll leave you on one last poem. You can get copies of this book out there. They're £10. But if you buy two, it's 20. So take advantage of that. Okay. I don't really know what this is about. Sort of driving. This is what my job is. I mean, I basically spend longer driving than I do writing or reading poetry aloud. So essentially, I'm a driver, and this just funds my driving. So it's the last one. Thank you very much, Joanne and the team, for having me here. Thank you lot for coming along. I can only apologise for being so disgustingly sweaty. It's very close in here. It's very close, and I'm a bit overweight. So I do my best, but it's what life is now. It's called the lay-bys and the bypasses. The sun is up again in England, and we've just 3 strings on our violin. Split ends springing from the bow, we're coming down. A dowager in a corridor, clutching a faded photo book. But listen now, I know this place. Our song's still beautiful. Let me recite for you and tell you how we're cast adrift from Europe, mad upon the seas we claim to rule. Sat around the port we shiver, red coats threadbare at the elbows, pith helmets abrim with butts and sick. Pray silence for my drunk thumbs, this is England, and I can tell it like it is. Last week I drove from Sheffield to Deal, 5 hours without a stop save pissing in a lay-by outside Luton. My mind a swim in caffeine pop. I didn't use a map. Oh no, I know this place, I thought. I know this place. But what do I know? I know the motorways. I know the lay-bys and the bypasses. I lay by. I bypass. There's life behind those conifers that I will never see. I spit this width and split. I pinch myself to stay awake. 2 empty car seats in the back. Some days I just see skeletons in a motor. They can't hear you when you scream. So why not scream? I live the life a wide-eyed child chose for me. Perhaps you do as well. Rickety old sleeper trains, we trundle on, we miss the points. So here I am, another Poundland port town. 100 miles from home, watching seagulls swoop like stunt kites on a coast that's not my own. And I try my best to make some sense of that. I tally up the good days with the bad. I keep my fires smouldering. I shovel on the poems and the admin, the triumphs of my children. I roll my terrors round my palm like Bowding balls. The way the house feels after 9 p.m. The Christmas morning lion. The gigabytes of smiles I dare not open because I know what happy is. A carload full of friends on a festival weekend. A phone call every night. Drifting off our fingertips in touch. Tearing through the long grass with my boys. Standing waist deep in September sea. Gasping with the cold. Lacerated lungs and a belly full of love. That time I tumbled from a train in Taunton. Hungover and hilarious. It must have been June. It really must. The sky was huge and blue. I just adored it. So as I swallowed it, it says it swallowed me. I swallowed it right back. And down the hatch went all of England with it. It knocked me to my knees thinking, yes, I'm here. I'm here. The road is still beneath me. The sky is still above me and I'm breathing. Oh, I claim to know this country. But all I can do is make it in my image. Squeeze it in the skinny jeans, file its teeth, distill its spleen, take pot shots at its pompousness for sport. I love and loathe it like I love and loathe myself. And yes, I know it because I know myself. Am I staying up here or will we run out of time? I don't know.
Luke, that was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you so much.
Don't come in. I'm sweating. I'm so sweaty. I can only apologise.
I mean, honestly, wow, wasn't that incredible? Lolling bollocks and sex with geriatrics. I mean, it made our session on sex earlier today seem pretty tame.
Wow. What can I do now?
Just a couple of quick questions.
Yeah, sure.
In that last poem, you wrote, I lived the life a wide-eyed child chose for me. Mm-hmm. How did you get into spoken word poetry, and has it worked out like that wide-eyed child thought?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started writing songs when I was 14. I went on a songwriting course that a guy called Martin Newell, he lives in Wivenhoe. He's a poet and a songwriter, and I went on the songwriting course, and then he mentioned that he was a poet, and so I went to go watch him do a poetry gig with John Cooper Clarke, and I saw them on stage making jokes and reading poems and sort of being like the front men of a band, but without a band. And I thought, I want to do that. And that was when I was 16, and everything else went. So, I would love to have travelled or done stuff like that, but I was just too focused on, I can't go travelling around India. I got a gig in Peckham, and it was like that. But to me, there was nothing more wonderful and glamorous than doing it, really. And I don't know what I expected, really. I thought, if I was able to make a living out of it, I thought that would be an amazing blessing. So, I'm lucky. I don't really. Yeah, I'm happy. As long as no one takes it away from me now, that's the main thing. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, help Luke make a living by buying 2 copies for the price of 2 out there later.
I'm just begging at regional arts festivals. So that's what my career is. Yeah.
On the 23rd of February this year was the 200th anniversary of the death of Keats, and Luke was commissioned to write a poem to commemorate this, and I really encourage all of you in the audience, Google Death of Keats, Luke Wright, on YouTube.
That makes you sound responsible, doesn't it?
Pour yourself a stiff drink and watch it.
Watch me piss on his legacy. Yeah.
It's very powerful and very moving. How did you approach that commission, and what was it about Keats that moved you?
Well, I mean, he was the underdog of the Romantic movement. He was a sort of working class lad, or not quite working class. He had a little bit of money left to him. His parents owned a pub, but his parents died young. He nursed his brother through TB, and he knew he was getting consumption. He knew he was going to die of it, and then he had to set off to Italy. He thought the best chance was to go to Italy. Because the climate would be better from there. And then the doctor in Italy put him on a starvation diet, which was the last thing. It was all these terrible blunders, and the life was slowly sort of wrung out of him. He was a very sensitive soul. But the shadow he casts over sort of modern poetry, and an idea of what a poet is, the idea of the sensitive, tortured soul writing about nature, I mean, that is Keats down. Keats is every cliched poet to ever exist ever since. He's a huge influence. And so, as far as the commission went, I just read everything that he'd written. A lot of it I didn't love. He's very interesting watching him find his voice. He died when he was very young. He was 24 when he died. So he was only really just finding his voice then. But the odes, Ode on a Grecian Urnum, Ode to a Nightingale, are phenomenal, and they release their magic very, very slowly over you. And that's not, that's a different kind of school of poetry to the one I came from. I grew up listening to John Cooper Clarke, Martin Newell, and poetry was very sort of direct and obvious, and I really liked that. And I think I never really appreciated the less direct, more subtle stuff. And so for me, it was a real education. Yeah.
In your poem, Bring Back My Devil, you're I think you were dreaming about a banal shitting down your back, which doesn't sound that pleasant. But
well, you know, you have the good devil and the bad devil, right? So the bad devil, I just had the. Yeah, actually, Martin Rosen, that's probably the reason he's still friends with me. Like, that's his favourite thing I've ever written. The idea of a devil sitting on the shoulder and the devil obviously be shitting down your back, like the barn owls that you used to have at school. When when they used to bring barn owls or hawks into school, and all the kids would stand there with like an owl. We had that. I've still got a snowy owl on my shoulder. My mum's got that on her wall still. Yeah, so that was just like, obviously the devil. And he was really annoyed because he's drawn devils and angels on people's shoulders for the last 30 years, and he'd never thought to have the devil shitting. So he immediately stole it from me and gave me a tiny little credit like that. Yeah, he's a bastard.
After 18 months of lockdown, what does your devil want to get out and do right now?
I don't know. I'm feeling very tired. It's like I was trying to explain to a teacher friend of mine what this month is like. I said it's a bit like mock exam week. Like it's insane. It's insane. I feel just quite tired. But I have obviously. I went to a festival. I went to Latitude last weekend and did 3 nights of staying up all night and doing all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I feel my devil feels fairly sated. I mean, we've been kind of free to be sort of get wasted since I don't know whenever we could sit outside, and we immediately got right back on it. So no, I feel all right. I just want to have a nice sit now. Biscuit. I want more lockdown. That's what I want. Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic having you today, Luke.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Please, can you join me in a round of applause for our sensitive fairy poet, Luke Wright?
Thank you very much.